Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Dine Sports YouTube page and podcast network. Today we're going to be talking hoops with a very, very talented and well-known lady, Fabienne Blizzard, who had a stellar playing career and then translated that into a stellar coaching career and is now helping to build programs on the women's prep scene and the academy school that she is a huge part of here in Ottawa, Capitol Courts Academy. We had to actually cut this interview a little bit short, and there's just so much information, and she's such a wealth of knowledge that we were really just beginning to scratch the surface with her there. So we're definitely going to have to look at possibly doing a part two of this, but this is just a small tidbit as far as some of the things that she can speak to as well too. And I've got a lengthy list of accomplishments that she's had, and again, it could probably be 3 pages long, and we'd only be halfway through. But just some of the highlights of her playing and coaching career: 2019 Cadet Women's National Team assistant coach, 2019 OSBA silver medal, the head coach at Capitol Courts Academy, Team Ontario coach for 2018, 17, 16, 15. Won 3 golds and a bronze for U17 and U15s there. Ontario Cup head coach, 2 gold medals there. As an athlete, 3-time OUA All-Star, 4-time University of Ottawa MVP, 2-time University of Ottawa Athlete of the Year, Quebec team silver medal at the National Championships, 2009 University of Ottawa Women's Basketball Hall of Fame inductee as a player and a leader. And the list just goes on and on. I actually had to put that down because trying to capture some of this lady's achievements and the impact that she's had not only on basketball but just sport in general from coast to coast is huge. So definitely a very, very accomplished woman who has made an impact on the sport. So we sit down and just try and peel back even a sliver of some of the things that she's been able to do, and sort of what goes into building a successful program, what goes into recruiting behind the scenes, not only at the high school level but at the NCAA level, at the USport level, at the college level here in Canada as well too. And she's had the privilege of coaching some players who have gone on to not only just NCAA Div 1 programs, but some pretty impressive, blue blood, traditional, high major programs. And so that for anyone who is involved in sport, regardless whether it's basketball, hockey, football, whatever, you know firsthand that getting American coaches to come up here and recruit is not always the easiest thing, but she's been able to create a fairly steady pipeline of players that are going on to play at the next level. So we talk basketball and all sorts of things, and a lot can be taken from this interview. So for anyone who's out there that's young, that's watching this, just open your ears and absorb as much as you can. And, hopefully you guys can take a thing or two away from this at the end of it. We got a lot to cover, so let's hop right into it. Coach Fabienne Blizzard of Capitol Courts Academy. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Dine Sports YouTube page and podcast network. Joining us today is a legend in the Ottawa basketball community. We have the one and only Fabienne Blizzard. How are you today, Coach?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. We're really excited to have you on board here. Have you been staying busy during COVID?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Lots of things to do work-wise, because work hasn't stopped, because I do work from home on projects, and then trying to keep the girls, the basketball team going as well. As I think, as we were talking about earlier, the mental health portion of it is the biggest piece. So we've been really working on having those dialogues and also making it fun. We had like Zoom sessions where we're doing Zumba dance, because I do Zumba. I'm a Zumba instructor too. This is like a pastime thing, so I can stay in shape. So the girls always bug me to do some. So we just kind of integrate a little bit of fun where it's not serious talk or serious basketball discussions all the time. So that's been keeping us busy. But now that they're off on holidays, we're giving everyone a break from each other, and not doing more Zoom calls on top of the school stuff that they were doing.
Yeah. And obviously this is a very unique year and unique season and whatnot there. And probably a lot of the things that you guys had planned for the girls over the summer, you've kind of had to, adapt to say the least there. Have things been going sort of relatively smoothly as far as doing some of the video sessions and all that? Or, what have maybe been some of the unique twists you've put on things to keep interacting with them there?
Well, we have life skills sessions twice a week, is what we call, and we normally have them during the year. I think with having them on Zoom, which was a bit different, you're able to bring more people in, even people that are outside of Canada. So we're being able to bring guest coaches or guest speakers to talk to them about different topics. And what I've done is I've also had them facilitate the session. So they have to, I give them a topic of interest and I don't give any details around it. It's up to them to identify, if we're going to talk about confidence, then they will actually facilitate the discussion, identify, and make sure it's interactive. So we're looking at all these because at the end, because we have different little things going on, we do sweaty selfies so they can when they show me they've done their workout, and some people will send me videos, and were you able to include family? So we had a hilarious video with the family actually doing a workout I've asked them to do, and
Nice.
I sent them the video and the family had to do it. And it's always like the person that's able to be the most creative by including their family. And then we have 3 people at the end of this year, at the end of the school year that we just finished. I'm going to send them their prize, which I'm waiting for right now because I got something made for them. So they will receive the prize. They were already announced by the time we had the last session. But it was a lot of really involving them in making the session. So it's not about us talking to them, but it's them also understanding, how do you facilitate? How do you make sure that everyone's involved in the discussion? So it was fun for me because I didn't have to prepare every time, or our assistant coach preparing. It was making sure that everyone had an opportunity to prepare for the session and show up ready. Always starting with an icebreaker, and then after that, getting into your topics.
Nice, nice. And you've got such an extensive, not only playing career, but coaching career as well, too. We've got so much to cover today that we might as well start at the very beginning here. Like, do you remember your first time picking up a
Oh my
basketball,
gosh.
or the first organized basketball activity you did?
Gosh, yeah. So Kyle, I am older. See, I'm wearing glasses now. People would be happy that I have my glasses on because I always ask someone else to look at something on paper. So Merrick would be very happy. He's like, "Where are your glasses?" I started way back. So I'm from Quebec. I lived in Sorel, Quebec. Um, so um, so I started. Believe it or not, a lot of people didn't know that, but I was a figure skater for at least a good 5 to 6 year, we would say, because by the 6th year, I got into high school, and the high school coach saw me running track, and he says, "Do you want to play basketball?" And I'm like, "Why not?" I think I was 12, 13 years old. As soon as I tried it, I really liked it. And my mom had made me choose, because said, you have 6 a.m. practice for figure skating and you're in competition right now, or you go to 6 p.m. practice. So that was really easy at 13 to decide that which time I'm going to pick. So I picked basketball. And then I just fell in love with it. Our coach was very passionate about it. There were specific rules, and I'm sure you can relate to that. My parents did work an hour and a half away, so they had to trust my coach so he can drive me home after. So it was very, he had to, I don't know how many things he had to sign, or I don't know how many checks my mom had to do, or my dad. It's like he did everything possible that they would agree that he would basically, after practice, drive me home, because it was at least a 45-minute walk. So he was awesome. Like he basically let me close the gym half of the time. The school is dark and I'm still in the gym. But because of him, I really just fell in love with the sport. My sister and I both played, because my sister's only a year younger than me. And she's actually a coach now in Montreal, coaching basketball. So she really loved it, but she didn't love it to the point of the level of putting as much work into it. That was our beef. I always liked when she was not on the team. So there was always that year that she was with me, so because she just messes around all the time, and then we had a different focus. So that was one of the things that we have with each other. I said, "Oh, you took it too seriously." So high school was great. I basically ended up watching the CEGEP in Sorel. There was a lady, a young woman that was speaking about her journey And the fact that she was at a different, she was at, I think at McGill, and I was so taken from what she was saying that I was like, you know what, I'm getting out of here. I'm gonna go to CEGEP outside of here. I'm not gonna do it in Saren. And I got recruited. So I didn't even listen to any other people. I just went with the first coach that recruited me, and that was in Lennoxville, Quebec. And that was on the same campus as Bishops, so Bishops and Champlain College. So and that's and that's where I met my husband, my now husband. But he played football on the football team, and I played basketball at that time, and I became one of the MVPs for that team. And it was a different time too, because you have to remember, back in those days, you played with the bigger ball, and it was 30-second shot clock. So not a lot of people shot. I was just speed, inside out, get to the rim, and it worked every time. No one played zone, which would have been perfect. So there was no strategy like that. But the teams were very strong because Quebec's CEGEP is pretty strong.
Yeah, yeah. And, looking back on it now, we'll maybe stick with your high school and below years there. What stands out the most to you now in terms of memories? What was it? The games? Was it a tournament? Was it just, time spent on a road trip with friends? Like, what are your most fond memories looking back on your pre-university playing career there?
I think what I like the most is, like you said, on the road. What was different compared to what we do today, where we stay in hotels and the kids, you stayed in people's basement. So teams, like, I remember going to Chicoutimi. I'm sure people are like, Chicoutimi, where's that? It's you go to Trois-Rivières or Chicoutimi, and you had a family that was billeting the team. And like, I remember we have pictures in the basement, and you're basically sleeping there. It's not hotels, like everything is set up. You
Big
get,
sleepover away from home.
yeah, it's a huge sleepover with the team. And you were in the basement, and you had a male coach, so the male coach had a room upstairs, or sometimes with a different house. So those were like my fond memory, because now you look back, yes, we stay in hotels and you're trying to make it fun, and but it was just so different back then. Hotels was not even something you thought about, because financially, not everyone had money to put towards hotels, and the coach drove everywhere and parents drove everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And, was there a certain point there, once you did start, maybe a year or two into it there, where you started to think seriously about, okay, I'm going to use basketball as sort of a tool to get to the next level? Where's that sort of light bulb or aha moment? Did that ever happen, or did it just sort of everything came about organically and you just sort of navigated your way through there?
Yeah, no, I think I did decide that I wanted to go that route, especially when I saw that young woman when she spoke, and she spoke at our high school. Um, it kind of had an impact on me, and I'm like, I want to do this. I want to play basketball through school, and I want to see if I'm able to get to the States, because at the time it's only Vermont that was recruiting in Quebec. And then and my mom had different ideas. She's like, you got to go to a McGill, those types of, because academic was very big. So she had a condition for me, so I can only play basketball if my marks are 90 and over. So from high school perspective, that was the condition, because my mom never thought it would last, and I think it's kind of like one of the things that I found as a young Black girl. My mom was always emphasizing, you're a double minority, so you have no margin for error. That was her, and it's just a lot of times as a young kid, you're like, oh my gosh. I said, are you lighten up, mom. So, but it was just things that she would prepare you for as you went through. Because when I went to CEGEP and I'm away from home, that's when a lot of stuff just kind of like, whoa, okay, now I know what you're talking about. So as a young athlete, I was always the only Black player on a team on top. But it never fazed me. So it's not but I think it's just when certain things did happen, that's when I went, oh wow, I get it. I do have to work harder, because I don't want to give anyone a reason. So that's why for her, the 90% mark was so important, because I said, never give anyone a reason for something that you may not do properly. So that's why with basketball, I just went all out. With school, I went all out. It was always like, it's all or nothing, because she always says you don't want to give anyone a reason to come back to you with something that you didn't do or you forgot to do.
Yeah, yeah. So, in terms of your actual approach to training, then, do you remember specific things that you changed? Did you start running more? Did you start, hitting the gym? Did you start a regimen of, I got to put up X number of shots every day? Like, what did you do to sort of get from the level that you were to that level that you wanted to be once you did decide, okay, I'm going to take this seriously?
I did start running more, I always remember I had the biggest boots, I think everyone's like the big winter skidoo boots. And I'm running I'm like, we're near Quebec City, from at Sorel. So I was almost at my knees and I'm running like a crazy person. And my mom just shook her head. My dad too. I said, oh, that's interesting. I want to see what's going to happen. I'm sure they were laughing at me the whole time, but I'm outside running and I'm covered and I'm sweating inside. I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this. But this is what my commitment was. I said, I'm doing this because I have to go the extra mile. And like I said, I closed the gym. At lunchtime, if I could, I would be in the gym. And he was also the phys ed teacher, so he would basically allow it. I remember one time there was a badminton, like a lot of times, as you know, at school, like there's the badminton, it's the badminton lunchtime series right now for that specific part of the semester. And we had that. And so I basically challenged the badminton player. And she just happened to be third in Canada. And I was just like, badminton's not a real sport, so let's play. Because I figure I'm going to win my court. You're going to have to put your net down. I've never ran so much in my life. I was like, she had me everywhere possible on the smallest space on that floor. And I was dying. I said, I need to high five you. I said, okay, I will never put down your sport ever again. But it's just those types of things where you kind of learn different things about specific sports that are really, really hard when you actually know how to play it properly. So there was different ways that I was able to try to make sure that I got time on the floor to do the things I needed to do basketball wise.
Yeah, yeah. And then so you had your CEGEP experience there, and you then went on to have a stellar playing career at U of O as well too there. So what was that transition like? Was it recruiting? Was it you sort of actively promoting yourself and sending out sort of videos of your game, or did it sort of coaches were coming to you at that point?
Once I was with CEGEP, coaches were coming to me. I was very fortunate myself, and the point guard, she was very good. She just fed me a lot. I used, like I said, my thing was, I just had speed, and I could, defensively was the big thing because from my high school coach believed in defense. So we pretty much scored off defense. Because I was quick and I knew how to steal the ball, I could easily get 10 points just off steals. So that was my biggest thing. So I really focused on my defense mainly. I just remember, and I always tell the girls this story because when I do Team Ontario tryouts, I always let them know. I said, they come in and I want to make it, I always want when people come into a tryout, you come into a tryout, you're going to learn about yourself, but you're going to learn new things. If it doesn't happen the way you want to, you just have to make sure that you come back. Ask for why and then come back. And for me, and the only reason I said that is because I remember I got cut, and I was so upset. And we're talking back in the days, it's 100 kids, so I have no idea how they can see you, and again, not a lot of Black kids at this type of tryout. So I got cut, and I remember the following year, I'm like, I'm not going back. Forget this. I'm not doing this again. This was too painful. I worked so hard. And it was just last minute. One of my friends kind of reminded me, I said, you said you love the sport. I said, since when do you let someone decide that you're not going to do this anymore? So that means you've actually given others power to decide that you no longer love the sport. When she said you no longer love it, I was like, no. That's not what it means. I said, well, you're giving up. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going. So I remember them selecting me And I left as quickly as they did because I didn't want that. I kept thinking they're going to change their mind. I better leave now before they notice they pick me. And it was probably one of my best summers. I really, really enjoyed it. I think this is when I ended up playing Team Ontario in Nova Scotia. Is it no New Brunswick? I think it was New Brunswick because I remember it was the first time ever that my mom came to a basketball game because with my dad. But in New Brunswick, I'm like, I said, of all the places, you're coming all the way in New Brunswick to see me play. And I remember back then we were on the team. There was Janet Swords and those types of players, and they were all from, I forget that Andy Spark used to coach that club team. I always heard it was a different club team that they were part of. And we lost by one to them, but I was assigned the biggest task is to guard the best player on the other team because of my defense. And I knew that's what I got selected for. So, because when I went to that tryout, my thing was I'm going to set up and I'm going to guard the best player. And I always tell people, if you're going to do that, make sure you can guard the best player. Don't just go and guard the best player and, they basically leave you standing there. So I believed so much in how I can defend that I always made sure I'm going to find who the best player is, and I'm going to make sure the spotlight is on me because there's 100 people at this tryout. And that's why I knew that I was going to play when it came to the Quebec team. And when we get to the final, I said, I will get that time because they're going to need someone to defend the best player. And that's what happened, especially because there was so much going on in Quebec in terms of the CEGEPs. And everyone always thought, I said, oh, well, it depends which coach they like. And, that's always these talks. And I always tell people, I said, don't get sucked into it's political, it's this and it's that. It drives me insane. Let's just go see what happens. If you're able to show in the way that, represents you well, you should be able to at least get your foot in, at the very least, if they're looking for the right people. So I think for me it was probably one of my best experience with the Quebec team, and at that time that's when all the recruiting also started. So it started kind of a year or two before I graduated from CEGEP. The year before I graduated from CEGEP, I got all the Quebec universities, so I knew pretty much all the coaches and they were talking to me. And Ottawa U was just a surprise because I didn't know Ontario. Like when you're in Quebec, you just don't look outside. You knew Vermont. So Vermont, I knew. My mom already said no, so it wasn't going to happen. I was like, sorry, can't do it. As soon as she looked at the academic portion, she's like, no, don't even mention Vermont to me. And then McGill was where I was supposed to go. And there was the Fab Five, they called us, and we were all going there. A week before school started, Ottawa U spoke to me, and they said, I'll get you into your program because for whatever reason, the coach had dinner with me and wine and dine. Those were all fun. That's why I told the girls, I said, if you have an opportunity to have people treat you well and, go ahead, because it's a great feeling. It just gets to a point where it's like, okay, enough is enough. I have to make a decision. Mm-hmm. We went for dinner and he saw I had a couple questions on my form. And I said, okay, good. I got the question. I'm going to mail those. And he's like, don't worry, I'll take care of it. He forgot. So he said, I can't get you into your program, which was business, but I'll get you into phys ed. And my mom, I think my mom she just lost her mind. Said, you're going to McGill in phys ed? That's not happening. So, at this time, I thought it's a done deal, Mom. I'm starting school in a week. But Ottawa U came in, and for whatever reason, I don't know who they heard from, but it's the basketball world.
Yeah.
So she's knocking at my door telling me I can get you in to your program. So a week before school started, I shifted. I just went to Ottawa U. I had nowhere to stay. I didn't even think about any of that stuff. Yeah. Luckily, my husband was from Ottawa. So his mom offered me to stay at the house where they were. So it was in Viewmont, Nepean. So I took the bus for the first year until I got my place, a place with the girls the next year. But it was kind of when you make a decision, I ended up making a decision where I wanted to go where no one knew me because I had such a good 3 years in Quebec. I felt that everyone knew you. They knew like your shoe size, you name it. I can walk anywhere and people are like, oh my gosh. And suddenly they're basically telling you your stats and everything about you. And now there's 5 of us going to the exact same school. And there's only 4 universities there
Mhm.
at the time. And all of us are going to those 4. And so that's why I was like, I want to go somewhere where no one knows me and I want to see if I can have an impact. So when she said that, I was like, this is perfect. And academically, my mom was like, as long as you get into your program, I'm good. So, so it was a pass. So that's kind of how it happened. But I always feel that, everything happens for a reason, and it just happened the right way. I think I've had the best 5 years of basketball I can think of in that program. It did help that my husband finished Bishop's University and he's going back home. He ended up having a major knee injury at playing football at Bishop's, and he was supposed to go to Eskimo for CFL. So I told him, blessing in disguise again. I know he didn't want to hear that at the time, but
Yeah.
it was a lot of things that happened where, if I look at it, we've been together for 35 years, so at the end of the day, I said things worked out the way it should, but he was my biggest cheerleader when I went to Ottawa U and played and really encouraged that, yeah, you need to have your own place. We need to be, separated so you can really enjoy your university the way it should be. So I think that's why I tell all the girls, I said, find someone that's going to support you and talk about the fact that it's about you. Go take care of your business, and then, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah. It's wild how some of these things just line up, and the rest is history, eh?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you touched on it briefly now. Obviously, you're now in a position as a coach where you're helping a lot of your girls at CCA through the same process, through the recruiting process, right?
Mm-hmm.
In what ways has the recruiting process changed since you were going through it? Or has, for the most part, not a lot has changed? It's just sort of the approaches. It's texts and emails instead of phone calls and, in-person conversation.
Yeah, it's like you said, that's the way it changed because I I was with Ottawa U for like 8+ years. So some of one of my responsibility was recruiting, and I remember you're getting like those VHS tapes sent to you about the girls. You're driving to Toronto to go to a tournament, and you're talking to the kids, you're watching how they, and I always tell them, because from my perspective, when I used to go, I watched the bench, I watched how you are with your parents, I'm watching how you are with your teammates on the floor and off the floor. I've actually walked out of a game where the girl knew I was coming and I left. And I remember Wanda Pilon at the time, because that's who I was coaching with at Ottawa U. She asked me, I said, what happened to Emily? I said, I don't think we want Emily. It's because her attitude, like she was, there's certain people when you add to your team, it just chemistry. And the attitude she had with her family is what kind of turned me off. I said, if she can talk to her family like that and her teammates like that, I don't think it's someone we want on our team. And I knew what the values were already. So that's what I was explaining to her, because those are the things you don't see off the video. So that's why it's really important when I talk to the girls about recruitment. What turns a lot of parents off is when coaches go and start doing Instagram messaging with the kids. To me, it's like, it's a little bit of red flags there, you know? The coaches with the right intentions are going to go with the right route. So it really depends, because you're talking about recruiting is happening at the high school level now for the prep schools and all that. And then you have the next phase of it, which is now university and college. And the university and college in Canada, they can talk to you directly. And I think I know pretty much all the coaches in the Canadian universities, and they've been amazing. Like, I get them in my gym on a regular basis. I want the girls to be exposed to them. I make them run half of my practice, because I really want the girls to see That's their style. That's their approach, you know? So if they, and that gives them a chance to see the girls differently as well. So that's kind of the connections they have. Coaches will often call us now, which is give me, you know, tell me about them. How are they, you know, as a person? How is their family? How's the dynamics in that family? So at least it gives them an idea before they say, okay, would you be, you know, would it be okay for you to share their contact details? For all of my girls, like I always ask permission at the beginning of the year. I said, coaches are going to call. If there's any hesitation, you know, that you don't want me to, let me know. But most of the time parents are like, nope, give it away. It's up, because I really want the girls to be, it's their decision. It has nothing to do with me at all. You know, I don't influence their decision, because I really don't want them to come back at me and say, well, you said, you know, and they have a miserable experience. So I want my name out of it as much as possible. You know, and those are the things I enjoy more. But I think, like you said, when you look at the recruiting process today, it is, once you now are able to talk to them, there is a lot of texting. There is a lot of, I know my daughter went through it. It's like, you know, she's like, I got to go to top 3. I can't do this texting every single day. So that's the part where I think it's a little much. I think at the beginning, you feel so appreciated, and you know the work you put in, you know, it paid off. Now it's like, okay, I have to start making decisions, because I can't have texting and talking to coaches every single day. Because, you know, they're coming after you because you're a priority. You know, if you're in their top 3 as well, you're getting calls on a regular basis. So I think, like, even someone like Marissa Russell, for example, for her, she basically decided, I think it was like almost, I think as soon as we got into September, where they could actually call her directly, because normally it would go through me and then I would set it up. And she basically, I think it lasted 2 weeks. She's like, I'm making a decision. That's it. And Marissa doesn't mess around. She's a very different type of person. She's a little bit of an introvert, but people wouldn't see it that way. But she would be, but she's also a kid that has done her homework. And this is what I try to make sure all the kids do. She has watched every team that has contacted her. She understands the style of play of the coach. She understands the rosters they have, and who's a senior, who's a junior, you know, so that's kind of in her head. She gets an understanding. She's been watching a lot of these teams for like 3, maybe 4 or 5 years even, because that's how much basket she just eats and sleeps it. And she is just so smart. So when you talk to her about, I'm ready, I'm like, okay, so why are you making this decision? What's happening? And she'll just like rhyme them up, boom, 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 boom. This is why, this is who, this is, I was like, the relationship building. And I'm like, you're ready, you pull the trigger, you know. But what I liked about her was like, well, if I pull the trigger, does that change something from a CCA perspective in terms of the coach interest into our program? But at the end of the day, I said, that's not important. I said, what's important is you. I said, we'll get the coaches. They're going to still come and take a look at our girls, because we have a good program. We have a good girls. But I thought it was just so sweet of her to think about the program and think about me, you know, and I think those are the kind of things where the recruiting process is so hard. And if you can actually just facilitate and help without saying, oh, you should go with them, or you should go with them because for whatever interest, or because it's your preferred team, I think that's where you're able to build that kind of mutual respect with the players, with your own players, the trust, because they know there's nothing in there for you. It's just you trying to look out for me and trying to get me to think about what I'm doing and making sure I've done my research and I understand what am I getting into. You know, I'm not going to there because of the name, but I'm going in there with my eyes wide open, and I understand where I'm going to be in the roster, because no one could tell you're going to play. So it's, but you know, I know it's a long response to like, well, how's recruiting? It's, you know, I think it's the same. It's just that you got all the electronics in the world to do what you need to do today. A lot more than you used to back in the days.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's such good advice too, right? Because for a lot of these families, right, unless you're coming from a lineage of just all-star NCAA Div 1 athletes there, right? It's their first experience with this kind of attention and this kind of process, right? So is there any sort of I guess you could say universally applicable sort of words of advice that you would give to a family who's never experienced a recruiting process, as far as, as a parent, what questions should you be asking, or what kind of dialogue should you be having with your son or daughter about, like, well, what are your thoughts on this? What's your advice to a family like that?
Well, I think one of the things that we do, because right now, one of the things I do with the girls, as soon as they get into that grade 10, 11, we start, I want them to start identifying what's your list? Like, you have your dream schools, everyone does. And then when you do that, I want them, and this is an exercise that they have to do now with their parents. It's going to be like, okay, I need you to take a look at this list and having a conversation with your parents about each one of those teams. So that means same thing, with Marissa. It's like, okay, you need to look at film on them, because there's so many films on every team. You can find them on YouTube. I said, their style of play. Is this aligned to your style of play? Because some of them they'll go through a team that is not a running team, and they love the running game. I have a player, that's what she did. She's playing at NCAA Division I at a team that does not love to run, and she loves to run. But she was like, oh my gosh, NCAA team. So, but those are the kind of things I said, you got to really, the style of play is number one, and talk to your parents about it. Then look at, do they have players your size? So if you're a 5'5" player, and I did that exercise with my own daughter, so that's why she's 5'7". I said, you're a 5'7" player. Who are you playing behind? And who are they recruiting over you, with you at the same time? And do they typically play small players? And a good example is Ashley Polachek. I've had her for Jewel for 2 years. And I know when she went to the school, that coach at UFC at the time loves smaller players. The Mississippi coach that loves his smaller players. But the new coach that came in does not like smaller players, but loved her work ethics. But at the same time, he's like, I don't do shorter players. So you got to really understand that. And you can see that by who they play. That's all. So I said, I really need the girls to, like, what's on their roster? Who are they playing? Are there 5'6", 5'7" players really playing, but you see them on the roster? And then the other bigger question, what is happening with the academics? And because a lot of the girls, we're blessed with, like, girls that are just workhorses, and their academics are so high. Like Marissa was a 93% average kid, but most of them, like our highest average was Cassie from Brockville, and she was 98. So we're very fortunate that our kids, if they weren't doing well off court, they were not going to do well on court, unfortunately, because it was in their head. It's girls basketball. That's how it happens. But so if they're having this exercise with their parents, it also allows them to be realistic about the teams that they've listed, because I want that exercise to be done. I've watched film over the summer, coach, like you said. I started to watch the players. I started to watch the players that play my position. And I noticed the following. They have Kia nurse type of size when they're playing. It might not be the team for you, So it allows them to start narrowing down that list of teams that they have in mind, because everyone will have like, who doesn't want to play for Gino? But what is Gino's, you know what I mean? Like, what is Gino's plans for? Do we see a lot of small players on his team because he goes tall? So there's a lot of things that you have to take a look at, and I want them to do that exercise, so then the parents gets comfortable with that. And I think I give the kids and the parents a spreadsheet too that has a lot of different questions that you can ask the coaches, just so you can start eliminating, because you're going to hear certain things that they are not saying. But those questions, they have to fill it up, and then they have another tab that ranks them in terms of the answers they provided. And academic is always the first part because most of these kids are all academic driven. So I make sure that there's those discussions that are happening earlier on. And then I also try to give them a bit of room because some parents will like, I need your help. And some parents were like, okay, we got it. And I want to respect that because then when they have questions, I'm like, okay, what do you need? So I also want to make sure, like, I think with CCA, it really kind of helped us because as a group, we looked at lessons learned, and staying in our lanes, we call it, is so important because we're good at everything. You're a dad now, so it's like, well, I can take care of any kid, but at the same time, it was like, okay, I'm your coach right now, so I'm going to stay in this lane, even though I could be, I know exactly what to do in this instance, and what I would say to my kid. But a lot of times it's more, you want to give that opportunity for the parents because we spend so much time with them that, when is that time where you're just like, have that conversation with your parents and let's see where their thinking is at as well.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, there's so many factors that go into the recruiting, and the family being chief among them. And, there's sort of the other hat that you wear as well, too, not only being just guiding them through that process, is you've actually got to coach them on the court, right? So when you're approaching a team, because, you look at your resume, you've coached everything from grassroots all the way up to provincial, national level teams and everything else in between. Do you sort of approach a team with a universal, this is my coaching philosophy, we're going to work through it? Or are you tailor fitting how you're going to run that team based on who's on it? And every team is sort of different.
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, we all have some general philosophies, and I know for me, when I look at general philosophies of, I can have a player that she's, we actually do have a 6'5" player. But at the same time, if that player is not giving me the effort that's required in our day-to-day practices, that means she's not playing, So if I'm looking at that aspect, for me, this is not just about winning, but it's about really developing you as a basketball player, as an individual, and as understanding that for you to get this, you have to earn it. And this is how we do it. So that's kind of that overall, but as you mentioned, it's true. Like right now with Marissa and Bella and Cassie and Rachel leaving, I had that team for 3 years. So, so now, and some girls were there now. So yes, we have some changes that we make in terms of our systems and how we're going to be approaching things. And that's, to me, is the changes you have to be willing to make, because these are high school players. We don't have a university where you're recruiting for your systems. So I think it's, and for me, what I like is the flexibility of being able to do this, and I think what I find that was fun is when I coached, I had 2 teams at the time. I had the Jewel team and I had the boys team. And it was so interesting to be able to coach those 2 teams and try to see which offense that I would have to work with for the boys team, because they could do so much more, versus the girls team, So so doing a dribble offense with the girls team, it would never happen in a million years with that, with that team that I had, because the only person that could handle the ball was Brooklyn and Tyra, along with, Ashley. So those were the only 3, but they're not playing at the same time, so you can't run it. But with my boys team, everyone could dribble the ball out of the sky because most of the team trained with Merrick all the time. So you have to be able to adapt to what the strengths of your athletes are, and then identify areas that we're going to develop, because by the end of the year, you want to be able to say that, now, I said, we know we started here, we got to finish here. Because I'm a project manager, every player for me is a project. So yeah. I need to make sure that we often talk about strengths and weaknesses. And I want to make sure they tell me, what do you think your strengths are? And once they tell me, then we get to see if we're on the same page. As you know, we're often not on the same page. So it's often so different. I'm a shooter. I'm like, really? All right. So those are the kind of things that once we know where we are, we can actually understand what we're going to be focusing on, and we can communicate that. And that's where I go with that. It's more of a, for 3 years we were blessed with with the same group, and we know that there's certain things we could do because of the players we had. Now we know the group that we're about to have is going to be very good as well, but they're younger. So now it's basically identifying a system that allows them to play a little bit more, because now I want to see if we can play to their strengths, and being able to identify the type of offense that we're still going to be able to run with in some cases, and some that we're meeting with the coaches next week. We're probably going to say, that one's not going to work at all. It's out until we probably get into that second year. So, and I think that's what the reality is of high school, unless you recruit for your systems.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And every coach is different, right? And you walk
Mm-hmm.
into some gyms and you go like, wow, this is a finely tuned machine going on here. You walk into some other gyms and you almost cringe at what you're seeing there. So if there is maybe a new coach who was listening to this right now, what's maybe one thing that they should do more of in their practices, and what's one thing that they're probably doing too much of and can probably do a little bit less of in their practices?
I think in your practices, like, I think your first like there has to be at least 30 minutes to 45 minutes dedicated to your skill work. Like you need, I think one of the key things that you see now, the thing that people need to know right now and need to do more, and what coaches are looking for is, on the girls side, everyone's looking for a true point guard. It does not exist. There's always the player that can shoot, that can kind of dribble, that can, but people are looking for a true point guard. They're rare now. And they're looking for shooters. You got to be able to shoot the ball. But at the end of the day, if you want to shoot the ball well, you need to be able to dribble the ball well. And I think that the thing is, and I always tell everyone, you should dribble every day for 10 minutes, every day, 10 minutes, because it's all about your fingertips control, your wrist control. So if you are dribbling, you're really getting a sense and a feel of the ball that kind of now gets into muscle memory, that when I get into my shooting pocket and I'm able to get a feel, you understand why you're going to miss, and that's why I said, when you're looking at what do we need to work on, get your skill stuff worked on at the beginning of it. Then you have to play, and you can create scenarios like play for the next hour and 15. I used to bring the boys to play against the girls, especially when I had the two teams. Like, I call it March Madness. March Madness, my two teams look forward to it. We had a full month of playing, and at the end, someone gets the trophy. It's either the boys or the girls. We even had what we call a finishing move contest instead of dunking. And I remember when our boys brought in, and they made a man all taped up, and they had to kind of jump over that guy to make a finishing move. It was hilarious. So they got points for originality, but that's what I mean. It's like your next hour and 15 is you being able to now say everything that we just did, all these skills that we're learning, these finishing moves, your step backs, your shooting, all of these types of, I need you to try them, because once you do it in practice, I want to see it in a game. And I always remember my daughter doing something in high school, and I knew it's because she had a session with Merrick, and Merrick did it to her. So she basically is playing against Brooklyn at the time, that was playing at St. Matt's, and she was at Santa FX, and she actually passed the ball to herself between Brooklyn's legs to the other side, because Merrick did that. He just pushed the ball, and Tyra was looking for him like, oh my gosh, because Merrick always comes up with crazy things when he does one-on-ones at the gym, that she did it in the game. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is she doing? And it's just a lot of what I liked about it is that we have a lot of players like, I just mentioned my daughter, but like the Marissas, the Cassies, like all of these kids that came through us, where they felt the permission to do things because I actually did it at practice because I did it in a game. I did it against the boys when we played the boys, you know. So even if it may not have worked against them, because a lot of times they're just a lot bigger, you might have to give them a counter and you didn't. That's where you need to be able to now. That's why Marissa's so good, because she played them so much that when it comes to counters, she can play the boys, and the boys are like, okay, I don't want to play Marissa anymore. You know, and it was to that point because I remember I brought her in to practice with the boys, and she was the only girl, and she was younger at the time. And by the time she got better in her second year, the boys are like, the gloves are off, coach. I'm like, this should be off a long time ago. Go for it. So they really enjoyed the competition with her, and they never really, you know, they just saw her as one of the team, you know, coming into practice and wanting to play. And I think if coaches just get into, I'm going to do skill for this much time, which should be 45 minutes, stretch it to 45 if you need a bit more. But that next hour and 15, you know, even if you don't want it to be like, oh, we're going to go 5-on-5, just start it from transition, like 3-on-2 continuous, 2-on-2 continuous, 3-on-2 +1. So you're constantly going until you can get to your last half hour of like, okay, 5-on-5, and you now have scenarios. It said, okay, you're down by 4, but you got to just keep it going where it changed the scenarios of things that you may need. Because I think that's what coaches want to spend, how much time on offense, and you never run it. If anyone that coaches boys team, like I want to see how many, except for probably Dave Smart, that how many teams actually run their offense.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it doesn't happen very often at our age with the 12, 13, 14, 15. So I think it's, you know, you need to be able to get your review done with them. Said, okay, we got 5-10 minutes, you guys walkthroughs, and you leave them. I said, okay, you guys talk through it, and you go between the two groups, and you're able to hear them talk through the options. And then now you start, okay, now let's go dynamics, let's go 30-45 minutes of different skills, and your skill can be related to screen action. You know, am I hard hedging? If I'm hard hedging, what's your next move? What's your 3 other looks when this happens on defense? You know, am I slipping it? So there's so many things that you have to do when you do 30 to 45 minutes that you're able to, you know, we have luxury now, it's 5 days. But when I had 3 days a week with either the boys team or the drill team, I really made sure that there's so many things you have to pack in. So your dynamics probably includes a lot of your ball handling. You know, so just to, okay, I got to stuff it in. I only have 2 hours and they're going to kick me out 10 minutes before. You know, the janitors, the custodian's going to come at the door saying, okay, you guys got to wrap it up in 5 because the other team's waiting. So you got to find ways before you get in the gym and after, and as you wrap up, how do you get as much as you can in on the little things? And then you give them homework. Have you done your 10 minutes of form shooting? 100 on a chair, 10 minutes of ball handling. If they can do that at home and it's only 20 minutes, why not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, such great points, right? It's you don't need these complex systems and 15 different kinds of offenses there. It's the little things that end up making the difference for them at the end of the day.
Oh, exactly.
And you know, when you're looking at a potential, you know, new recruit for CCA or a new player joining the program there, you know, what are some of the qualities that you're looking for before, you know, you bring them into the fold there?
There's gonna like one of the big thing is the focus piece, because that's how I was very focused as an athlete. So that's huge. You get pulled into that. The compete fire, like, because you can't buy that. I'm sure you've seen that, like with dealing with so many athletes. So when you have that compete fire, it's hard to teach that.
Yeah.
So you're really looking for that hunger, and you know, because now it's easy to, you know, facilitate and shape. And I think the last piece is the people that are supporting them. Like, who are these people? Because I think, as you said, you've coached. A lot of times, you know, with the parents, it's really making sure you have the right parents also that are supporting us as a coaching staff in terms of what we need to do. And that's really, really important, because they have, you know, I always tell them, I said, you know, once you trust us, we said, we trust each other, we're respecting each other. Let us do this, you know, let us take care of this. And it's harder when you have parents that are coaches. And I'm sure you've seen that before.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it brings up a really good point too, right? And you know, you've mentioned it several times as well too. You know, your daughter is a very high level USport athlete herself growing up, and you know, what was your sort of role in her basketball journey? Like, were you coaching her all throughout her playing years, or were you more so enjoying just being a parent and watching her develop? What was that dynamic kind of
It was funny because both my son and my daughter wanted to play basketball. They both, and I remember the reason why we were with the Wolverines all this time, and they're just a fabulous club. I just love, like, I loved working with them. And I only remembered that club when I came to Ottawa because Ottawa U adopted them as a sister club. Michael Connor back then invited us to do clinics, and it was just a small little gym with like 12 girls. So that's kind of how it came about, where for me, I'm like, okay, I only know, as soon as they said we want to play basketball, and I know for me, I didn't want to push them into it. They tried everything, which you're going to definitely go through. Gymnastics, swimming, all that fun stuff
like? Oh
that you're
yeah.
going to do, dancing, everything. I think it's important. They gotta try different things. And as soon as they said, we want to do basketball, I'm like, oh my gosh, let's do this. So basically we did house league and I coached. At first I was sitting back and I noticed that the parent needed a lot of help. And I said, okay, you know what if I help you? And then we basically we had a good time with that team. And then what we did is I told them that I would move with this team competitively. But like I told my daughter, I said, you have to make the team, because that we had a big thing. My husband did the same thing with my son in football. They have to make the team on their own merit. Because my daughter doesn't look a lot like me, it was easy to be at a tryout where other people didn't know she was my daughter. So it was good because she was able to get through that. But I always remember, I said, I'm not going to tell you when to do your ball handling. I'm not going to tell you when to do your shooting. It's all up to you. So the whole summer she worked her butt off. I didn't, because I was tired, as you'll see, I was tired of watching. I said, I don't want to see you do it. Watch, I'm doing this. And she always, I said, nope. I said, I don't want to see it. It's up to you. And I remember it was mid-September and we went to tryouts. I'm running the tryout. I have my assistant coach and she did really, I was surprised. I was like, man, her ball handling is better. I was really surprised. She was doing really well. And we called everyone, we told everyone, they made the team, and I forgot to tell her. She's crying her eyes out in her bedroom. And my husband, I said, what's wrong with Tara? He's like, I said, well, she said you cut her. And I'm like, I did? I did not do that. I said, she actually played well. I was shocked that I thought I was going to redshirt her. And he said, no, she's crying. You never talked to, I said, that means you never talked to her and she thinks you cut her. I was like, oh my gosh. So she ended up making the team on her own merit, which I was very proud of. I didn't start her until maybe her second or third year. And it was because of my assistant coach, because she was always responsible to take care of, anytime we separated, I separated my daughter. So she didn't work with me. She worked with the assistant coach, which is my assistant coach for CCA right now. So it was really good that way. And when she stopped listening to me, I brought her to Merrick. And that's how I met Merrick, because I was already a skill developer for Ottawa U when I was their assistant coach. So when I met Merrick and he was doing one of those Merrick Palmer sessions, it was Andy Waterman that kind of say, hey, Merrick is doing something if you want, because I couldn't find anything for the kids at the time. And he says, Merrick is doing something at this school. Maybe you want to check it out. So I just ended up there and I said, hey, do you want some help? Because he got at the time, I think he had 14, 15 kids. And I wanted to, help the kids because they were smaller. And that's how we started working together, especially when he did Capitol Courts. I was one of the one of the instructor there as well. Like, you know, a lot of the female crowd was coming as well. So that's kind of how we started working together. So as you can see, the theme with CCA is everyone started working together for a very long time. Even my mental trainer, he started with my Wolverine team because I just wanted them to have a mental trainer, like just like I had when I was at Ottawa U a lot earlier, because I said, man, if I had this when I was in high school, that would be great. So he was the mental trainer for Ottawa U, and he was actually writing his thesis. And I said, what if you did your thesis with my team? And so I'd always kind of had that kind of barter thing with people because I didn't have any money. I could just pay them in hugs. So that's kind of how we did it. He came once a week and wrote his thesis on the you know, the female versus the male, because I had two teams. You know, in terms of how the psyche works and the confidence and everything. And so I was able to at least take advantage of some of the resources and show them the advantages of mental training at you know, at the club level.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we could be here all night talking about basketball here, but, you know, we've got to wrap up sometime,
Yeah.
and we'll definitely, you know, look at possibly getting you back on a future episode. But if you had to, you know, look back on it and pick maybe one or two memories that stand out the most to you, and it could be coaching, could be as a parent watching a game, it could be as a player, you know, what would those moments be?
For me, I would really say, I think one of the things that you know, I find that I cherish the most from coaching is the relationship I have with my athletes. And I know I said, you like, what are the moments back then? I said, for me, I like something I remember recently. It's like, you know, like it's Marissa calling me 2 weeks ago to say hi. How you doing? I said, just want to tell you my whole body's hurting, but I'm happy to see you, you know, that kind of stuff. Cassie, that's going to McMaster, same thing. She just called me. I said, just want to see how you're doing, coach. You know, I know it's different times. Like, and I always told them, I said, what is going to make me the happiest with all of this is when they actually move on in different parts of their journey and they remember to, like, you know what, I'm going to invite coach to my wedding. So that means that you've done the right things when it comes to the kids. And I find that, you know, every kid so far, I said every one of them, even Ashley, which is, you know, like that, you know, some of the kids, it's been a while, they still kind of keep in touch and contact me just to say hi and see how things are going. And they don't hesitate if they feel like something is not right, that they can actually talk to someone that they can trust and that will be neutral, because my thing is no judgment. You call, this is what's happening, you know, and, you know, I'll help you think things through. But I think when I look at this, to me, I really cherish the coaching and the impact I have, because that's the one thing that I never get any money for. Even CCA, if you think about it, I was like, I don't get any money at all. So that's why I still have my full-time job. But I think I get paid with their appreciation for what I do, because that's how they show it, by just giving me a call or send me a text. And I think those are the memorable moments, because there's so many moments, like you just said. Like, I went 5 years at Ottawa U and they were great. Like, I look back, I met so many wonderful women. I played with great women. I coached with wonderful people that when I decided to coach, and they always advised me. And I just feel like I've been so blessed with the teams that I had to coach, the teams that I played with. I just think that a lot of things were just so positive. And I just never saw things as, you know, as, you know, how do you say that again? Like, if, you know, whenever something happens, it's not a bad thing, it's a learning thing, you know? So that's kind of the way I see it. So I think all my biggest memories are really just the athletes that I've been able to work with, and that's playing, and that's coaching right now, because I really appreciate them just allowing me to coach them. So that means they just open themselves to have me coach them and listen to me and be able to mutually respect each other.
Yeah, amazing. So for any athletes out there who are listening to this right now, never be too cool to call your coach and just say, how's it going?
Yeah, invite me to your wedding. We're
Yeah.
good.
There you go. Coach Fab will be the first one on the dance floor there.
No
Awesome.
Zumba.
Yeah, yeah, amazing. Well, for people who are listening right now who might want to learn more either about yourself or about CCA and the work that you're doing there, where can people find you or get more information?
Yeah, I think that, even through CCA, we have our email address there. A lot of people will go to through Merrick as well, to reach out to me. That's the easiest way to do that. And people always know how to find me.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. So check it out. They've got a website. We'll get it posted along the bottom there. And aside from that, like I said, I feel like we're only just scratching the surface here. And you're just such a wealth of basketball knowledge and information there that we'll have to do this again. But I just want to say thank you for taking the time to sit down with us and just sharing just a sliver of your sort of life experience there.
Yeah, no, thank you, it's a pleasure to actually meet you and talk to you instead of just waving at each other. So, so don't be a stranger now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks so much. And that's it. Another episode of the Dine Sports YouTube page and podcast network in the books. Massive thank you goes out to our guest today, Coach Blizzard, who sat down with us and shared her journey through sports and as a player, a coach, a recruiter, everything else that goes into running a high quality basketball program there. We probably could have gone on for another couple hours, and we were just beginning to scratch the surface as far as her knowledge of the sport, of the sports industry, sports business, everything else that goes into making a career in a specific sport there. So definitely going to have to look at getting her back at a future episode. Make sure you guys like, comment, share, subscribe. We've also got various social media outlets as well too, all of them at Dine Sports. Love to connect with you guys on there, keep growing this community and keep the momentum going. Got some more great guests coming up in the next couple of weeks there, so be sure to stay tuned. Until then, stay safe everyone. We'll see you next time.